when you have the curiosity, you're able to put yourself out the picture. And everyone's problems these days is putting themselves too much in the picture of everyone's business, of everyone's childhood, of everyone's trauma. You're not a part of it. I don't know about you, but I've gotten into that victim role in my ex relationship now. And I remember so vividly a moment where I was like, Grace, this is not you. You are not a victim. And I remember snapping myself out of it like, this needs...
Interesting.
Yeah, so interesting. Because I remember really like just thinking to myself, like, what is going on in my head? Like, I'm not a victim. Like, yeah, okay, I'm being made to feel this way. But what you just said is so crucial, because I was able to then be like, hey, this isn't because of me, it's because of you. It was a reflection of him. It was a reflection of everything that he's carrying from his childhood. And what you were just saying was totally my ex. He was always in the past, always in the past. And I was always trying to pull him to the present, which I freaking did with my best friend and all my other exes.
But that's why you're so upset. That's why it's so frustrating, because
you put so much energy into pulling them back to the present moment, but it's not your duty.
No.
But when you've been in that role for all your life since you were a child, maybe, you know, unconsciously then like us in a sense, right? Until we hit a point where we're like, this cannot be us anymore. Because it really drains you, doesn't it? And then you notice, you're like, oh, and that space is gone and it's been lifted. Even like when I lost my best friend and when I now went through this breakup, space, you know, is open in your heart again. And then I'm like, oh, okay, that's why, because I tried so much, and it's not my point to try alone. I think that's really something that you have to learn. Like, sure, you can try together in a relationship, because I mean, it is like a, you know, it's a joint thing, and like you should be both being at the same level, right? But if you notice at one point you're trying too much, like I did, and then I was putting myself in this victim role, and I was like, like, then you need to step back and reflect, like, how is this mirroring in all my other relationships and dynamics, right? Because then you see it, like you were just saying, these patterns, they do form chains. And when you're allowed to break yourself out of the chains, because you are allowed, and you can, and you are worthy, and you deserve to even break out of these chains, and it is possible. Like, healing is possible. And like you were saying before, it's not just a one-off, like, yeah, forgive myself, that's it. Like, it's totally all these tools every day that you have joy in. You know, it's not always about, you know, oh, I have to do that again. It's like, no, I'm having joy in it, and bringing that joy back into my life, freeing that space up for me. Because when you do, then it comes more naturally to help others. And that's something I've only really learned in the past 4 years, man. You know, like, I need to top up my cup to help people properly. If you
are carrying other people's weight, you'll always collapse, because you need to learn how to carry your weight first, and then know what you can carry. I completely understand. And then you have to ask yourself, what is the lesson here? Because I'm stuck on what you had said about that, like this thing that always keeps repeating itself, and you're just like, why does it always end up this way? And then that's where the question arises for me is, okay, so then what do I need to learn here? Yes. Because obviously I always tell people, when pay attention to the patterns, because the patterns are hints. They're going to be things. They're going to be hints to what it is that you're here for, what it is that you're here to work on. So when you have those patterns, it's like, oh, okay, so this thing keeps happening over and over again. Okay, you're onto something. Where follow the trail. And once you do, that's the scary part, though, because then once you engage with that, be prepared, because there's a reason why you've avoided it. And a lot of times it's subconscious. Like nobody really goes out of their way to go, I'm afraid of this, and so therefore I won't follow it. There's a thought in the back of your mind that you might not even know is there or forgot is there. And anytime something comes up that challenges that, and that brings that thought up, that scary thought that you don't want to face, you go down a specific route. And so then you become predictable, because it's like, oh, well, we know what you're going to do next. And that's what happened with my parents, is I was able to go, I know what this person's about to do next. Like, and you can kind of understand that, oh, well, this is the fear coming up. This is the trauma. This is, and it's out of worry. And so then the self-defense mechanism they've had their entire life reemerges, and then so that's what creates the patterns. So then that's why I always think, if you can find the pattern, you can often find what you're here for. And but it's scary, though. If you're right, it is scary. But wouldn't you say that it's
scary to start with and then it's fun?
It's actually, here's how I would describe it. And this isn't to discourage anybody. I still think regardless, you should seek that adventure, because it's better than the alternative, which is what you've lived. And if you're having questions about how you've lived, it's for a reason. So that alone, I think, is enough of a reason to attempt it. But for me, when I started the journey, it was scarier and more difficult than I imagined it would be. But what I had learned was that I was actually more resilient than I thought. And that piece is the most important part. You are far more resilient than you think.
Yeah.
And you don't know that for sure until you test it. And that's the scary part, right? Because, well, for some people it hasn't gone well. Well, for some people and that's the problem, is you're thinking about other people. You just can't control that, but you can address you. Life is hard. I can't tell you any time where I haven't had a ton of fun until I started to really dig into the scary stuff. Because if you're still living in it, if you haven't faced that monster, so to speak, that's a monster that is in your life forever. And so what are you going to do? Are we going to try to confront it and then figure out how many times we need to come back? Because you can come back. I think that's the part that a lot of times maybe I didn't give myself any credit for, that if I can fail, but I can come back, and then just try until I don't fail anymore. I think that's been the part where I just that part didn't compute, that I would survive failing it, right? Like that I would survive falling a couple times and then I could get back up. I think that was the discovery phase of that scary part, but it's not to discourage anybody. That's why I said, once I confronted that and I realized that I could survive it, that I could survive my biggest fear, then is where I started being able to. And it doesn't mean that from one day to another, I suddenly don't have the fears anymore. That didn't go away. It's still there. I just am able to speak to that. I'm able to go, hey, this is what's going on, because it's a little kid that's still afraid. That goes, ooh, I'm afraid of this. And then you have your older version, your adult version that has gone through that could sit down and go, hey, this is what's going on. We're all right. Let's keep going. You've been here before. You can get through it. And then that kid goes, okay. And then we go. But it's not black and white. Is the thing that I think I would say is it's just it's not, you don't face it and then it's just done. You get better at it and you still face it every day.
But it gets quieter.
It does. Yeah, it does get quieter. And I think that's the thing that surprised me, was that, oh, well, I think you're just done with it. And it's not necessarily that. It's that it gets quieter and you get better at responding to it. That's how I would put it.
Yeah. It's a good way of putting it, actually, because it just kind of brings up the factor of repetition. Your brain loves repetition. We're made for repetition. So that's why we thrive off ritual and routines. You know, as a kindergarten teacher, I see it too. Like, that's so important for children to have a routine, and it's still so important for you as an adult to not just have a 9-to-5 routine. Can I just say, have a routine that suits you. Have a routine that makes your soul alive, that feeds your soul, creativity, curiosity, gratitude, peace, connection, solitude. These are also, you know, chapters in my book, because they are the key factors that you just said, it's funny, that don't allow you anymore to just survive, but they invite you to thrive. And that's really the key. Like, you're not just here to survive and be on standby mode. You're here to thrive and be alive.